Welcome to All About Money on HK IBC. I'm Chloe Pham. Healthcare is a controversial issue in Hong Kong because of the lack of resources in public hospitals at a time when the population is aging. But this has also provided new business opportunities, with online insurers offering affordable and easily accessible options. In just 4 years, life and medical policies sold in Hong Kong via direct channels instead of the traditional way almost tripled. So why are more people turning to virtual insurers, and what is their business potential? Tonight we're joined by Mr. Jacky Lio, Chief Medical Officer of Hong Kong's first virtual insurer Bowtie, to discuss the industry's landscape and the medical insurance trends. So great to have you today, Jacky.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And first thing first, how about also let us know what made you to transition into the virtual insurance industry?
Okay. Just a little bit of background for myself. I studied medicine in UK and I worked in the NHS for 10 years. And I was an acute physician within the NHS. And I had the opportunity, one of the co-founders, Fred On, has been a long-time friend of mine. And about 5 years ago, he was in the process of applying for the virtual insurance license, the first in Hong Kong. And he told me about this idea of how he and Michael Chan was about to start a life insurance company focusing in medical insurance. He asked if I wanted to join. And back then, I thought it was too good of an opportunity not to turn down and give it a go. So I went to my wife and said, can I get some permission to actually take a leap of faith? My plan was to see. It was just too good of an opportunity for me to pass down. And 5 years down, I haven't regretted it since. So yeah, here I am.
Right. Actually, this industry is still quite new to Hong Kong. So many people may not still be aware of this industry. I mean, it's emerging and it's developing as well. But just tell us, what are the major differences between the traditional insurance companies and also the online medical insurance companies? What made online ones stand out?
I think the thing I will highlight is with us, we are the virtual insurance license is exactly like another insurance company's license, except for the requisite for us to how we distribute our products. So traditional insurance companies, they have the capability to use an intermediary to commission them to sell their products. Whereas us, we are not allowed to do that. So that already kind of restricts us with online being the distribution channel. And you ask kind of why there is such an industry kind of came about. It's not new per se that worldwide it has been a trend for insurance to distribution to move online. Basically, in Hong Kong, from what I understand, 5 years ago was the time that the first 4 virtual insurance license was issued, and the insurance authority has actually been looking into allowing for companies to actually have the virtual insurance license for quite a time before that. And the reason behind that was stems from what they see overseas in having an insurance industry where the distributions could both be in person through an intermediary or online via kind of direct sales.
So online insurance companies will be more in a direct way, like when it comes to the distribution channels. But also tell us if, for example, if you can do this, why can't the traditional ones also offer some online services to, reduce the layers in their distribution channels as well?
I think.
Can they do that?
They can. So to kind of highlight the difference, I think they are allowed to sell their insurance product online just like we do, but in the reverse, we are not allowed to, like them, use intermediaries. And to kind of answer your question a bit deeper on will they do it or kind of can they do it, I think the answer is they're allowed to, but whether they would is in kind of their interest to do so, immediate interest to do so, I think it's another question. Because I think, especially having the experience in the last 5 years of being a digital insurer, selling insurance online is not just about having an insurance product and putting it online and allowing an application to come in and issuing a policy. It's not as simple as that. So there's a lot of what we learned, a lot of lessons involved in kind of how we gather the customers to kind of understand what we sell online and get them to understand to be willing to understand the product that we're selling themselves online so that they will actually commit to buy. So the whole process, the focus of the company and the product itself has to be focused for this direction. And I think for traditional insurers, it's not that they don't have the ability, but simply they have other focuses. And we chose to focus on different sections of the sales channel.
So speaking of that, who are your target customers? I know so far Bowtie has over 100,000 customers in total, and the majority of them are the corporate customers, and 20% of them are the individual customers. So who are the individual customers that have come to you so far?
I think they are the ones who naturally, they're the early adopters, we would say. And these people are the people who kind of more aware of the merits of what a digital insurer can offer. So that might involve kind of our ease in application, that might involve us not having the hassle of hard selling them, and our price competitiveness per se. And these people, what we had to do to get them was simply to make them aware that we exist and entice them to actually understand what we offer online. Going forward, I think, so that's the kind of 100,000 that we talked about, both in the 80% corporate and the 20,000 individuals. Going forward, I think we need to make more efforts on getting the wider Hong Kong to learn about us, but also kind of the people who learned about us but still have reservations on us, and it's our job to kind of convince them next. So yeah, that's...
Also, is there any features about the age trends from your customers as well? For example, are you targeting more of the younger generations?
That's a very interesting question. I think initially we had the hypothesis that most customers who would buy into us are the young, tech-savvy, more financially literate professionals who understands, who is confident about servicing their insurance needs
Purely
and at a time of need themselves. We actually got a big part of this group, but interestingly, what we also got at the two ends of the spectrum is these people are the policyholders, and they're buying for their elderly parents, and they're buying for the young kids as well. So we ended up having a situation where our policyholders are what we suspected, the young and tech-savvy, but the people that we're actually protecting nowadays, they spread across the age spectrum.
Now, I also have a question because for many people, they might already have some medical insurance coverage from their companies, from their employers. Then some may not necessarily think that I do need some additional medical insurance coverage. How would you encourage those sort of people to also, choose some additional medical coverage as well?
I think first of all, that question is highly kind of situational on that person. So I think what I can comment on is a bit of generic principles. I think the first thing is about the concept of insurability, where I hope your audience is aware of that insurance, whether it be life or medical, is not something that everyone at each stage of their life, regardless of their health, are able to purchase at the same price. Usually how the insurance works is the younger, the healthier people are, they tend to be cheaper and they tend to be able to buy it. So when you have group medical coverage, and I assume that that person is still in good health, i.e. still has the insurability, I think that person has to be mindful that that might not always be the case. So I know of a lot of cases where people might be thinking of, oh, I have group medical now, the coverage is pretty good. I will wait until I don't have that, i.e. when I retire, to consider buying my own insurance. So the first thing to remind that person is be mindful that there is a chance by the time that you don't have the group medical coverage anymore, there might have something that happened to your health that affected your insurability, that you might not be able to buy back then. I think the other thing I would remind is kind of the insurance need of a typical working age adult, where so far we've just been focusing on medical insurance. So that's when you require medical expenses, how do you get financial coverage for that? But also there is life insurance, where in the case of you passing away, how do you settle your financial liabilities? And also kind of critical illness, where we kind of want to position us, and we believe the correct kind of position of critical illness is what happens if you during your working age, acquire a serious illness that needs to stop working and the income stops. There is a lot of, you do need a lump sum of money to kind of get you through that liquidity crisis. So that's where we thought as well. So the message in that I have for your audience is, I think not only, if you're working age, you have group medical, that's great. Think about insurability, whether you lose that, hopefully not, but whether that is a risk you will. And secondly, whether just group medical insurance is enough to cover all your insurance needs.
Now, actually, Bowtie has done pretty good job. Like, it has its business performance almost tripled in the 4 years' time. I mean, how would you comment on the growth so far? And what are the secrets of the quick and rapid expansion in Hong Kong as well at Bowtie?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think we're very proud of what we have achieved. So you mentioned, like, we kind of tripled our what we did. I'll share a little bit about what we did first. I think, as you mentioned at the beginning, when we first came on, there's only kind of around 3% of insurance sales is through kind of direct channel. And during this time, it grew to 9% about. And we managed to become the market leader within that market share. I think what it means to me is it demonstrated our initial hypothesis that there is a market for digital channel and it could potentially be successful in Hong Kong. We have kind of taken a very important first step in demonstrating that that is true. We had a lot of doubters from inside or outside of the industry on whether it would work. I think that the last 5 years kind of, to me, validated that we've taken an important first step. So as I shared previously, I think the people who purchased us are the ones who are adventurous enough to kind of be convinced as soon as they understand our merits. I think our next step is to kind of get people who heard about us but still have reservations to convince them that why we are worthy of their trust, and to communicate stronger on the merits of perhaps considering a digital insurer like Bowtie.
All right, hold that thought. Jacky will take a short break for now, but coming up next, we'll continue our discussions on Hong Kong's preventive care systems as well as the online insurance business potential, so don't go away. Welcome back to All About Money on HK IBC. I'm Chloe Pham. Joining us tonight is Mr. Jacky Lio, the Chief Medical Officer at online insurance firm Bowtie. So, Jacky, thank you so much for joining us. Earlier, we have touched on your company's business performance over the past 4 years, but also tell us what is a business model and where's the profitability coming from? Because for companies like yours, many customers were all actually very concerned about, for example, the long-term financial sustainability at such firms, because they're investing in the long term as well. So where's the profitability coming from?
Okay, I'm not an actuary by trade, so I'll try to give a simple overview of the question of how kind of our profitability. Essentially, I understand that we work with reinsurance partners and use data to kind of price the insurance coverage that we're issuing out to the public. And those data tends to be very robust and for many years kind of in accumulation. So we base those and we kind of add our operational expense and the profitability part onto how we price the insurance products. In terms of why that applies to the digital channel and our business model is that in terms of the operational expense part, we could, and we had been, there's a lot of potential savings for a digital insurer that does not rely on an intermediary through the distribution channel as compared to a traditional insurance company. So that's where we realize our competitive edge is. And so that's where we focus on is if we do not distribute our products through an intermediary,
Agents.
What do we do in response? So instead, what we do is we focus a lot on attracting customers to come organically to surf our webpage to understand our products. So that might involve placing ads to kind of attract them directly onto our webpage, but also we have a lot of focuses on creating health and insurance contents free for public's view. That we try to use SEO, search engine optimization, to target what we think the public wants to learn about. And there's a big funnel for us to attract customers onto our webpage in understanding our products as well.
Right. Also, Jacky, we know that living in Hong Kong is so expensive and going to see a doctor is very expensive as well in Hong Kong. Is there any estimates about how much does one needs to earn or invest in so to enjoy a very free medical insurance coverage after retirement, for example, in 70s or even older age? Is there any estimates on this, and how much does that transfer on a monthly basis?
I think that's highly, again, circumstantial to that individual,
Right.
what they expect from kind of the private medical experience that they receive and so on. But I think generically, I think I can make a comment on, if you look at the VHIS, the Voluntary Health Insurance Scheme, the standard plan annually covers about 420,000. I would say that's a good benchmark for what the minimum, but kind of enough benchmark would be. But I think if someone in your audience is looking for a more comprehensive but adequate coverage, I think another suggestion I would have is to look at the flexi plans that's common in the market. They range on an annual coverage of about 600 to maybe $1 million per year. That's not the high end, that's the flexi mid-end plans. And usually, take Bowtie, for example, the coverage experience we get is enough to cover 90% of the amounts claimed on average. I think that's a pretty good protection, and in return for kind of what the premium requires. Before I came on, I just had a look at our flexi plan insurance, and it takes about $200 per month to cover a 40-year-old like me. So so that's the kind of premiums required, $200 per month, and in return, you get 90% kind of reimbursements for vast majority of medical insurance expenses.
Long-term plan as well. And we really need to start thinking early as well. Thinking about the inflation issue in Hong Kong as well, even though, for example, the Western economies are seeing high inflation rates, in Hong Kong, we are seeing the inflation rates remain moderate. But how is the medical inflation so far been going in Hong Kong?
I think that's a great question. I think first point I comment on is the medical inflation in Hong Kong, like the rest of the developed world, has been, I think, unhealthily large for unhealthily long. I think it has been close to double digits, if not on the high single digits, for 20 years consecutively already. So whilst the medical economy is part of the overall economy, and as you correctly stated, that the Hong Kong economy's inflation has not been extreme, I think that is not the case with the medical expense and medical inflation. And I'll add on that that's part of the reason in my view, the aging population, so the demand of medical services is ever increasing, and medical advancements. The new medications and treatments tend to be more focused on a subset of patients, and these subset of patients needs in return to kind of cough up, dare I say, in terms of the fees to support the new inventions. So there's two drivers for medical inflation. I would say it's up consistently running about 8 to 10%.
Oh, that's really pretty high. Yeah. And last year, the Hong Kong government also unveiled a primary healthcare blueprint, which aims to put resources into the private sector to better manage the needs of the rapidly aging population. And authorities also hope to shift the center of our healthcare system from the treatment-oriented healthcare to the prevention-oriented healthcare, which is also in line with your firm's vision. But you also study in the UK, and how would you comment on the city's preventive healthcare system at present in comparison with other regions, for example, in the UK? And how do you also view the private care market development so far in the city?
I think I really welcome the recent government's initiative to kind of push for the chronic disease management, kind of the focus on not shifting, I wouldn't say, to pay attention to non-acute outpatient primary care services, and on the preventive side, getting people to detect the risk factors. All of those initiatives I really welcome. And if there's one thing I think I wish it came on earlier. So I think that definitely for me is the right direction. And in terms of kind of what I like to see more or how I think Bowtie can potentially contribute to that, I think the direction is clear as the government has spelled out. But I think executing it is not as easy. I think if we're talking about shifting patients seeking behavior from kind of going to the knocking on the emergency service when they actually have a heart attack or stroke, to think more about how do they kind of change their lifestyles and get the hypertension managed or diabetes managed. Education is a big part of it. The awareness that there is such a need, and the public being understanding where to access it and where to that screen, that's a big part of it. And I think another part of it is having initiatives that incentivizes them to do so and allowing them to understand where they get it done. I think that's another big part of it. And I think thirdly, collaborating with the private sector, that's a big part of it as well, because I think so far, definitely the government is, and the health service has been attending to preventive health. But I would say thus far, like, it's mainly kind of segregated between the public and private sector. And I think that's part of the issue of why we have so much unmet demands. And I think being a part of the private sector myself, I think I would be interested to kind of look for opportunities to collaborate in terms of public-private and actually allowing customers to not just stay in one side of the health sector. That's what health insurance is about, and that's what Bowtie is about in terms of the health service access.
Basically to turn into the private sector, the private firms, to do more body check as well, to enhance such efforts as well. But how do you see the difference between the system in Hong Kong versus the system in the UK, for example, in other regions? Are there any lessons that we can learn into or like to improve referring to their systems?
I think there's no perfect system. I can spend a long time on kind of the what I think the NHS ought to do better, but instead, for your question, I'll focus on what I think maybe Hong Kong can reference from NHS, from my experience, from my view. And I think that's mainly kind of the focus on primary care, where in the NHS we have a lot of focus on and allowing customers to access a GP consistently. There's a lot of incentives in place for patients to stick with one primary care provider. That's key number one. And secondly, I think it's the access. I think in the NHS, because most patients tends to use the NHS, the access, it's the resources kind of the UK government pumps into it. It's disproportionately large. So I think that could be something that Hong Kong could reference as well. And I think thirdly, I would say, UK had for many years looked into kind of how the NHS collaborate with the private sector as well. So I think that's the third thing that we could probably look at.
More collaboration as well. Lastly, before we go, so what's next for Bowtie as well in terms of the further business expansion? Would you consider, for example, expanding to the other regions in Singapore, mainland China, South Korea, Japan? So what next, and what is your ultimate goal?
What's next is for us to focus in Hong Kong and to, as I mentioned, to get us to be more well-known in the Hong Kong public space, that we are here as a digital insurer providing health insurance protections, and hopefully get them to understand our merits. So that's our immediate focus. In terms of the geographical expansions that you mentioned, I think that's really not on our mind right now. Let's focus in Hong Kong first.
Focus on Hong Kong.
How do we, as someone who have absolute interest in our minds on their long-term health as well, how do we engage our customers so that we could potentially improve their long-term health?
Thank you so much, Jacky. It's great to have you today. So that's Mr. Jacky Lio, Chief Medical Officer of Bowtie, Hong Kong's first virtual insurer. And thank you for tuning in. All About Money will be back next Sunday night. So until the next time, see you then.